Hi, and welcome to Mrs. Pam Reads. Today we are continuing in our story, Zoo, by James Patterson and Michael Ledwidge. This will be, well, there we go. We're in book 2, and this will be chapter 19. And in our last video, Abraham and Oz came across the empty truck, tourist trucks, and some interesting body parts, or not body parts, maybe like watches and watches and clothing and that sort of thing from the elephants, not the elephants, the lions attacking the tour group. And that is where, hi baby, you might see the cat. That is where we ended. I hear you. Yes, this is Cora. You may have seen her already. She sometimes likes to come up and say hello, although you don't really see her. There she is. Okay, let's get to reading. Chapter 19. Stretched flat in the tall grass, the dominant one-eyed male lion crouches, waiting. Since hearing the distant grumble of the engine, he has been lying on the edge of the clearing about 80 feet to the east, just within charging range. His powerful chest rises and falls under his almost strawberry blonde mane. His dusky amber eyes narrow, focused on the distance. He opens his mouth slightly, whiskers tingling as he scents the dry wind. Having hunted this pride area almost from birth, the 10-year-old male knows every inch of the terrain. At first, he lay in wait to the west, but moved when the wind shifted. A keen predator, he takes up a position downwind so his scent won't be detected by his prey. He is waiting patiently for his prey to put its head down or face the other way, the optimum position for attack. Just a moment or two of distraction will give him enough time to charge. He will finish the stalk, as he always does, by quickly knocking off prey and knocking it off his feet and clamping his jaws on its throat. He would already have attacked, except he is wary of people, unused to hunting them. He has been shot out several times by hunters and game preserve rangers during his days of wandering, before he had joined his pride. Without taking his eyes off the prey, the lion makes a low vocalization. It is answered by a soft growl, almost a purr in the grass to his right, and then by another string of moans in the grass to his left. In response to his call for a stalking attack, wow, the 24 lions at his back split into 2 groups, one to flank and herd, the other to wait in ambush. The flanking lions begin skulking quickly, silently through the grass, using every scrap of cover. Their yellow and brown fur makes them all but invisible. 20 masses of grass-colored animals in the vegetation. They string themselves into a loose net around both the sausage tree and the prey, cutting off any chance of escape. Chapter 20. It doesn't sound good, does it? Abe cocked his head and whistled, and the dogs leaped from the truck and into the tall grass. Listen, man, Abe said as he sighted through his rifle's telescope. If it comes up, The best way to kill a lion is a headshot right between the eyes. Thanks for the tip, I said, continuing to film. I lowered the camera a moment later when two sharp, loud dog whines rose in the air at the clearing's edge, one right after the other. Abe whistled for the dogs. Nothing happened. So here is our typical afternoon reading with my neighbor mowing. I'll try to be loud. He put his fingers to his lips, whistled louder. Silence. That's not good, he said. Abe raised the Remington to his shoulder and pressed an eye to its sight. I swung my camera in the same direction and held my breath. Like that. A lion appeared in the grass 20 yards to our east. I had never seen a lion in the wild before. It is a beautiful and terrifying sight. The sheer bigness of the animal, it truly makes something spin in your soul, deep below the ribs. I was still in a state of unprofessional awe when Abe pulled the trigger. The blast of the rifle so close to me was like a kick in the head. It left a mosquito whine in my left ear. In the place where the lion had been standing a moment before, there was nothing. It was as if he had disappeared. Abe climbed back up into the Land Rover. Get your ass up here if you feel like staying alive, man. That sounded like a good idea to me. I slammed the door, and then there was motion from the other end of the clearing. A second male lion broke cover and stood up in the tall grass, stock still, tail swishing, watching us. There was something otherworldly and bleak about his implacable, amber-eyed gaze. The lion roared and began moving towards us, slowly at first. Then something triggered in him, and he tumbled into a charge, coming at us at breakneck speed. Abe pulled the trigger just as he began to leap. Another jolting crack of firepower in the air. I saw a fistful of brain fly out the back of his head. He died in the air and slammed onto the ground in a tumble, rolling into the driver's side of the truck, rocking it as though it were a cradle in the grass. I kept filming as Abe kicked out the bullet casing. It pinged off the edge of the windshield with a sound like a wind chime. On the ground below, I noticed that the lion was still breathing. Not for long, there was another whamming thud as Abe shot right above the buttocks through the spine. Abe replaced the 3 spent cartridges in the rifle's magazine. When he was done, he lifted off his hat and wiped his brow as he looked around the clearing. Silence. No insects, no birds. The shadow of a high white cloud raced over us. I took my eye from the viewfinder for a moment and glanced at Abe beside me. He looked sick. I panned the camera, following his gaze. In the grass, about 30 feet away, surrounding the truck, was a circle of tawny heads. The lions had manes. Oh, wait a minute. All lions had manes. They were males. 24 male lions. Abe was blinking. A finger to his open lips. Sorry, the cat's bumping the computer, kind of petting herself. He was so puzzled that confusion got the better of terror. Impossible, he whispered. All males? It didn't make sense. Male lions just don't do that. A pride of lions consists of a dozen or so related female lions and one, sometimes two, at most 3 or 4 males if it's an unusually large group. Adult male lions who aren't part of a pride will hunt alone. Never, absolutely never in the wild do male lions congregate in large numbers. It just doesn't happen. Except it was happening. I kept rolling with the camera as the male lions began moving. They moved forward for a few steps, then stopped to allow the lion behind them to go forward. They seemed like trained soldiers, coordinated, choreographed, synchronized. I expected Abe to stomp on the gas and get us the hell out of there. Instead, his mouth pinched into a hard set. Almost in a single fluid motion, he raised the rifle to his shoulder, sighted, and fired. Off to the left, the head of the lion closest to the truck blew open, and the animal slumped into the grass. Abe was swinging his rifle around for the next one when the grass in front of the truck opened up and a golden blur streaked in front of the camera. A paw caught Abraham in the face, and there was a cracking sound as he flipped out over the driver's side door. Chapter 21. For a long, much too long moment, all I could do was sit there in the passenger seat of the truck, as if my ass had been nailed to it. I was visited with the same sudden, gut-seizing spike of fear I'd experienced when I first jumped out of a Black Hawk as an Army Ranger medic in the Battle of Fallujah. I'd stood there at the door like a dunce, with his privates in his hand, unable to move. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay now. Paralysis. Here we go. I even did the same thing I'd done that day as bullets sang past my confused, cotton-filled head. Ah, jackass. I mentally screamed at myself. Do something. Abe's gun was lying cocked across the driver's seat next to me. I snatched it up and anchored the barrel on the driver's side door. The lion had Abe in his mouth and was dragging him backwards through the grass by the collar of his shirt. The rifle kicked hard against my shoulder as I shot the lion in the head. I jumped out of the truck and ran the 15 feet or so across the grass to where the dead lion lay and where Abe, his head pouring blood, was shakily climbing to his feet. My only goal at this point was to get us the hell out of there, get Abe to a doctor. I draped his arm around me and we hobbled back to the truck. Abe was bigger than me and much heavier. It was slow going. There was so much blood bursting from Abe's head, I couldn't tell where the wounds were. I got him into the back seat of the truck, and I was trying to MacGyver a bandage out of his shirt when the truck rocked like a boat and almost tipped over. A lion had leaped onto the hood like a cat, scrambling onto an armchair. He peered curiously through the windshield. His eyes were warm amber stones. They glowed like heat, blood, and honey. I decided, if you want to call it that, the best place was under the steering wheel. I crawled into the front of the truck toward the lion instead of away from it, a bit like a boxer leaning into a punch. I dropped under the steering wheel and squeezed myself in until I was crouching against the floorboard and clutching the gun. As I waited for my life to end, I reflected on the fact that the rover was still running. I slammed my palm down on the gas pedal. The engine roared in place, and nothing happened. It wasn't in gear. I pounded the clutch with my elbow and reached up and toggled the stick shift back and forth until I heard something catch. I let out the clutch and gave it some more gas with my other hand. The truck lurched backwards. I'd managed to put it in reverse, which was fine with me. We were moving. I pressed the accelerator onto the muddy floorboard with my palm and held it there. And I felt the driverless truck rocking and fishtailing at random across the grass. My head whacked against the steering wheel and the metal door frame as the rover went bumping backwards over the field. On the hood above me, I could hear the lion snarling. His claws clicked and shrieked against the glass. With the car still in motion, I unwound a little from the fetal position to see his front paws and his massive shaggy head peeking over the top of the windshield. He looked like one of those old Kilroy was here drawings, and I reached up and cut the wheel hard to the left. The lion roared as he slid, scrambling for purchase, off the windshield and fell beside the car, yelping as the rover thumped against him. And then we were flying. Oh, the rover went airborne, backward off the off the steep riverbank. And for a moment, we were in the air. While bracing for impact, I had a good long 2 seconds of quiet time to reflect on the situation my life was in. And in those seconds, I decided that I really couldn't blame Natalie for dumping my ass. Then we hit the ground. Wow. That's where we're going to stop for today. I've got my little marker there. That was a lot. Pretty intense. All right, you guys. Whew. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I've not read it, so we're going through this together as I'm like, ooh, yeah, wow. I hope you have a wonderful day. I do want to remind you to subscribe to the channel so you'll get an update when a new video posts. You just need to click that little bell tab and you'll get notifications. And in the meantime, until our next video, have a wonderful few days, and I will see you next time.